All right, welcome back, terrestrials, to the quarantine movie reviews. Today, I got a special mention. I wanted to do something a little bit different. I wanted to do an episode on a movie called The Poughkeepsie Tapes. It came out in 2007, but, well, it was made in 2007. Let me rephrase that. It was to be released in movie theaters in 2008, and it was taken out. It was removed from the list of things to be released by the production company for whatever reason. And then later in 2014, it was very briefly on video on demand, and it was taken back off there. Only as recent as 2017, this movie was put on streaming platforms and available on DVD. I don't know what the situation was, but this movie is, the little movie that just wouldn't stop. It's a horror mockumentary. Typically, I'm not huge on those, but this one did a really good job at it. There's a few things that kind of annoyed me, but I'll get into that later. So as far as the plot of the movie, is there's a town called Poughkeepsie in New York. The police raid a house that is known to be associated with a serial killer named Edward Carver, and they find over 800 VHS tapes. That's a lot. And all of these tapes are from Edward Carver. They're all videos that he made, his homemade snuff films, just, torture, whatever it was on there. We'll get into a little bit more of that. But he specifically targets one lady named Cheryl Dempsey. She's kind of the main person in the movie. There's a lot of different scenes from his tapes, but this girl is the through. She's in almost all of the videos. He's like one of the original people that he snatched up, and he beats her, he rapes her. Psychologically, he tortures her to the point where she has Stockholm syndrome. And at some point throughout the movie, he makes her start wearing this doll mask, and keeps her chained up, and he starts making her do fucked up things, and she's a very big part of the story. But overall, the story is told through interviews of policemen, FBI agents, criminal profilers, and they use the VHS tapes to cut in there and show little things and then kind of talk about it. They mention out of these 800 tapes, there's about 5 or 6 missing, if I'm remembering correctly. And they allude to those maybe having his face on them or his license plate number or something that would give him away because they never catch him. It's not the most original idea of having found footage type killer type movies, but it was a fucking good movie. There's some real disturbing shit in there, and some of it was a little hard to watch. Some of it was a little goofy, but my biggest grievance with this movie is they shot this digitally and put a VHS filter on the video. And I understand why they did that. That would be ridiculous to shoot this on VHS. But the graininess of the filter and the discoloration and the waviness of the film was hard to watch. It hurt my eyes because it was constantly blurring out to a blue, green, red, the spectrum of video. And it just, the graininess, like they put too much filter on it. I grew up in the age of VHS, and I've seen VHSs with movies copied on top of movies on top of movies, and I've never seen anything that looked this fucking bad. I've seen, we've pulled the film out of the VHS, wound it back up. Like as kids, we fucked VHS tapes up, and I never seen any that looked this bad. So it was hard to watch certain clips. But with that being said, I'll set that grievance aside and move on. But it was really fucking annoying. All right, I swear that's the last thing I'll say about it. It had some really disturbing scenes. And one scene, he gets a couple to pick him up. He acts like he's broken down, on the side of the road. He has a couple pick him up. And he's like, oh yeah, just drive over here. There's a gas station. Well, of course, that gas station is out of service. It hasn't been used in a long time. And he hits the guy in the head with a hammer. He chloroforms the woman. And the next thing you know, there's, police photographs of their bodies being found. He takes the guy's head, cuts it off, and sticks it inside the woman's stomach and sews it so that his face is coming out of her stomach. Just little things like that. So if you're sensitive to gore, you might want to skip this one because that's pretty light. There's a lot of psychological things that he does to this lady, Cheryl. He just, constantly yells at her and tells her that she's his slave and all this stuff, and eventually it starts working. At one point, he, through the movie, he puts a doll mask on her. I don't know if you can picture the little girl's mask from the houses that October built, but it's kind of like that. And she basically lives inside that mask, chained up. And, there's one scene where two Girl Scouts come to his house, and you're like, oh, fuck. Don't kill the little girls, man. Come on. And he invites them in, and they stupidly come into his living room, and they sit on this chair across from him. You assume he's sitting on a couch. There's a coffee table, a long coffee table in front of him. And he starts asking the girls questions like, you assume that he's going to, kill him. Like, he asks them if they rode a bike. And they're like, no. And he says, do you tell your parents what route you're taking? And they go, sometimes. And then you start hearing this distant screaming almost. And so the girls, oh, what's that? And he's like, oh, I left the TV on in the basement. And then, they talk a little bit more. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry, girls, I don't think I'll be able to buy any cookies from you. Why don't you let yourselves out? And you're like, oh, thank God these little girls are getting out of here. And then he stands up. And, of course, the whole time, all of these scenes, he has his little VHS camera running. And he stands up and he pulls the tablecloth off of his coffee table in the living room, and Cheryl's there with her mask on, screaming inside the mask. And he's like, oh, you haven't been a good girl, and drags her back downstairs, yells at her, beats her, whatever. So it gets a little realistic, I guess, because these types of crimes do happen. Thankfully, they're rare, but they do happen. But it gets pretty intense, especially with her. It ends the movie when the police raid the house. They find those tapes, and they find Cheryl. And by that point, she's lost a hand. she's still in the mask for, it would seem that she's in the mask for years. And it ends with an interview with her where she's like, oh no, I love him and I know he's coming back for me. I just can't wait to see him again and we'll be together and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, God, Jesus. And that shit happens. So it happens out there and you don't see it happen in real life. So this is the closest version of that. So you can kind of like lean into the realism of this. And but that's how the movie ends. There's a little bit more to it, but I won't ruin everything, I guess. But it shows his evolution as a serial killer from the beginning, where he just picks his victim at random, which is a little girl in a front yard. He just walks up to her, talks to her for a second, snatches her, and runs to his car. And then he becomes more methodical, more planned out, more calm, not so impulsive. So it definitely shows his whole evolution. And like I said, they never catch him. He actually somehow, I won't tell you how, but he ends up framing a cop and they arrest the cop and put him to death. Obviously this guy was pretty intelligent, this fictional character. But so I think if you're in the mood to watch something fucked up or you're into fucked up movies, then this would be a good one for you. If those things trigger you or they just upset you in any form for whatever reason, then this movie you definitely don't want to watch. Or maybe you do and you want to see how much you can take. I don't know. But I would say if you can deal with these kinds of movies, then this is a great one to check out. If you can get past that fucking VHS filter. It got a 6 out of 10 on Rotten Tomatoes. And it on Bloody Disgusting, it got a 4 out of 5. And it was rated one of the best indie films of that year. So I would say check it out. Though it was a good movie, the big reason I wanted to do it was just because it struggled to see the light of day. And it was a lot better than a lot of garbage in the horror section that you'll find. So even though it was 2007 when they made the movie, it didn't see really the light of day until 2017. So that was the big thing that made me want to review this movie. But yeah, check it out. Let me know what you think. Let me see, let me know if you threw up or your stomach turned or you had to turn it off. Let me know in the comments section. And upcoming, I've got another one. Me and Mac are gonna do Guns Akimbo, the Harry Potter sequel, and me and Jerry got a lot of different things in the works. We're gonna be back with some more, hopefully pretty often, depending on society collapsing and all that. So stay tuned, and there's a lot to look forward to. All right, guys, stay safe out there.